When is the last time you bet on yourself? Right? Think about this. Have you ever wanted to do something like finally starting your own business or trying something new with your art or starting a YouTube channel, whatever? But then that little voice creeps in and says things like, I don't know enough to do that, or I'm not good enough to do that, or I've got to wait until the right time, or what if it doesn't work, or what if people laugh at me? I have. When I decided to leave my 20-year career in the theater, I was terrified. I was a two-time college dropout and was working in the theater was all I knew. If working for myself didn't work, who was going to hire me? When I decided to start a photography business, honestly, I knew next to nothing about photography. And the little voice in my head told me that it was an overcrowded market. And then when I decided to niche down to headshots only, well, if I don't do weddings and families, is this just going to be nothing but an uphill battle? And then again, when I decided to expand the business to the portrait and the boudoir work, I was going, is this going to scare away all my headshot clients and completely destroy my business? However, every step of the way, I knew that I wanted more. I wanted more out of life. So I had to make a choice. Do I stay where I am, or do I take a leap and I bet on myself? I had to make a choice. Do I stay stuck, or do I bet on myself? And let me be 100% clear. Betting on yourself can be terrifying. There's no safety net. There's no guarantee. There's no one making sure that you're going to succeed. But on the flip side, staying where you are and just letting time pass, wondering what if, to me, that was even scarier than the risk itself. Here's the thing. The idea of being ready is a myth. No one actually feels ready when they make a big move. You just decide to start. And starting is the thing that builds confidence. It's not the other way around. Since many of you know me from my photography work, let me give you an example from my path. When I started the business, I was working out of my house like many people do. However, I knew that at some point I was gonna want to rent a studio space. And at some point is extremely vague, right? So we were in the holiday season, we were right around New Year, and I said to myself, in this new year, I will move into my new studio. Now I'd made a decision. I still didn't know how, but the decision had been made. Slowly, I started looking, and I kept an eye out for rent signs when I was out running errands, and I was checking online listings, and finally a place looked really interesting. And I panicked because it was only March. Like, I was not at all ready to move that fast, or so I thought. But I went and I looked at the space anyway. And at the time it was perfect. But adding that bit of overhead and those utilities and everything, it was going to be a stretch for my budget. So I went home and I told my wife about it. And I said, you know what? I am just going to think about this. And think about it, I did. Like, how was I going to pay for this? I was going to be in a binding contract for at least a year. What if no more clients booked? What was I going to do to pay for this space? So then I was having lunch and I caught a clip on social media of Steve Harvey talking to the audience after a Family Feud taping. And he was doing his talk on sometimes you just have to jump. So I did. I jumped in the car and I went downtown and I signed the lease. And I moved into the space a week later. I have since moved studios 2 times and my business has grown every single year. I had to be willing to take that leap, right? My bookings had been steadily growing, so why was moving into a new space going to make that stop? If anything, the action and the nerves motivated me to grow the business faster. Sometimes getting uncomfortable is the best thing you can do. Let me also be clear. The time is never right. If you're waiting on the perfect date and time, you will stay in the same place that you are forever. I want you to think about something in your own life, something that you've been sitting on, maybe overthinking and talking yourself out of. Maybe it's launching your business. Maybe it's raising your prices. Maybe it's putting your work out there in a bigger way. Whatever it is, ask yourself, what's really stopping me? If you strip it all back, most of the time, it comes down to fear. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of the unknown. And let's talk about failure for a second, because that's a big one, right? Like nobody wants to fail. But I can tell you from experience that failure isn't what we think it is. It's not the end. It's just a part of the process. I've messed up. I've made bad decisions. I've taken risks that didn't pan out the way that I wanted them to, but every single one of those moments taught me something that I wouldn't have learned if I just played it safe. And to be completely honest, the biggest shifts in my business, the biggest moments of growth, all happened after I stopped waiting for the right time and just went for it. That doesn't mean be reckless. Betting on yourself doesn't mean ignoring reality or making impulsive choices. It means trusting that you are capable of figuring things out along the way. Betting on yourself doesn't always mean quitting a job or making a massive life change, though it can. Sometimes it's smaller steps, choosing to show up every day for your craft, charging what you're actually worth, saying no to work that doesn't align with your goals. Every little decision you make to believe in yourself adds up. If you're struggling with this, I want you to ask yourself, what's the worst that could happen? And then, what's the best that could happen? Because so often we focus on the risk and we forget to consider the reward. What if it works? What if you take the leap and it turns into something bigger and better than you could have ever imagined? If you need a push, here it is. Just start. Not next month, not when things calm down, not when you feel 100% ready, right now. Even if it's small, even if it's messy, even if you're scared, especially if you're scared. Here's my challenge to you. What's one way you can bet on yourself this week? What's one small step? It could be putting your work out there. It could be reaching out to someone that you've been meaning to connect with. It could be making a decision that you've been putting off. Whatever it is, commit to it. Because if you don't start taking control of the direction of your life and taking steps towards your goals and dreams, you are the reason you didn't achieve them. You have to bet on yourself and take action.